Live. Hi, it's David from Race Set Go Adventures on the next installment of Adventure Live. Our guest today, top pro triathlete, Suzie Snyder. Suzie, welcome to the show.
Hi, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us from Nevada. Appreciate you having you on here. We did get some questions from some of our athletes, but maybe a place to start, maybe talk a little bit about your background and kind of how did you find your way from early on in life and finding your way into off-road triathlon and a love for it. Let's start from there, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. I guess, so I grew up out in the country in upstate New York, and, that I was a kid, I was always playing outside because that's just what we did. I mean, we didn't really have video games, and we had 3 channels on TV, and, we lived on a lake, so there was plenty to do outside. My brother and I would go climb trees and build tree forts and stuff. And so I just kind of was an outside kid growing up, and was just active. And my parents were active, and, running road races and, local 5 and 10Ks. And my mom did a few local triathlons. And so I would just kind of tag along with them. Like, I'd ride my bike while they ran and stuff like that. When I was just, a little kid, like 10 and under even. Just kind of enjoyed doing that kind of stuff. And so as I got into school, and I ran cross country and track, and went to college and did the whole cross country track thing. And as I think I was a junior or senior, I can't remember. And I started to think, I've been an athlete all my life, like doing competitive sports, whether, it was cross country or track or competitive water skiing. They said, like, once I'm out of college, what am I going to do? Like, I won't have a sport. People, when you leave school, there's no organized sports. So I can't just like go to the gym and, So I was a lifeguard at Grafton State Park, where Xterra Sky High is held.
Yeah.
And I think it was that summer. I don't know if that was the first year John was putting on Sky High at the park, or if it was just the first time I had been there for it. I'm not sure. But
hey, Suzie, can you just see if you can raise your volume a little bit more? One of the people just messengered me.
Oh, okay. I can't, but I can maybe, I could do some headphones. Maybe that would help.
Okay. We'll try that. With us, guys. Just want to make sure you can hear everything. Thank you, William, for giving us the feedback.
Let's see if it,
the joy, we were talking on our pre-call, the joy of technology.
Yeah. Let's see. Is that any better? Hopefully.
Hopefully that's better.
We'll try that, and people can
chime in. All right, thanks. So you're talking about Sky High Tri and Grafton Lakes, which I love that course. That was a lot of fun. Many times I did that.
Yeah, so much fun. So, we had to help put the race on and set up and, lifeguard for it and first aid and all that stuff. And so, I saw it all kind of happen. And one of my lifeguard coworkers had been doing Xterra for a year or so and had all these just epic stories, and it sounded like a lot of fun. So after the race, I went and talked to John Slyer, and I had no idea he lived a mile up the road from me, and he was friends with my dad. No clue.
Right.
So he said, oh, well, my wife is pregnant right now, so she's not riding her mountain bike. If you want to give it a try, like, I'd never mountain biked in my life. I'd ridden on the road plenty.
Right.
I mean, not seriously, but so I went and borrowed Kathy's mountain bike, and I took it to Grafton to work one day, and I had Shimano SPD pedals on it. I didn't have shoes or anything. I think I was lucky to have a helmet. And so I just in my tennis sneakers, got on the bike, just on top of those SPD pedals, which was the worst thing you can do,
Yeah.
right? Especially at Grafton, so rocky and rooty. I don't know how many times I crashed, like then only on that first ride, but that whole first summer was just, I was a mess. I didn't exactly have someone to teach me how to mountain bike. I just went out and crashed and learned what not to do. Yeah. But I loved
not
it.
alone. I was part of the crash to learn crowd.
Yeah. I don't recommend it. If anyone out there is thinking about starting, find someone that can take you out and sort of teach you how to do it right.
Absolutely.
So I just kind of jumped into it. I was like, well, I'll give this a shot. Maybe this is something I can do post college, and just loved it. I grew up a runner. I was not a competitive swim team swimmer, but grew up on the lake, always swimming and water skiing and stuff. So I was a decent swimmer, lifeguard. And so I just kind of started training, and I just got more and more into it because it was fun and it was challenging. It was, not just running every day, which I was used to. So it was nice to be able to mix things up and do different things, but also have that challenge of, well, shoot, now I have 3 things to do. How do I know like when to do what and how much to do? And so it was fun to be able to play around with that. And I just took to it. Loved it. So I think I got Hartford, let's see, Capital City Dirt Triathlon was my first Xterra. And my first triathlon, I didn't even do any road tries before I started Xterra. I just jumped straight into the dirt. And I got 2nd overall in my first race. And I was like, oh, wow, maybe I could be good at this. So
that's great.
So I went.
What year was that about?
2003, I believe.
Okay.
So then John's race was my next race, and I think I got 2nd in that one, or 3rd or something, and I was like, yeah, this is cool. And just took it full steam ahead.
That's awesome.
So.
That's awesome. And I think it is. I think we were talking about before in our little pre-call, all these different backgrounds that triathletes, especially off-road triathletes, come from, right? About, how do you, where did your experience come from? So obviously you swam, you were a runner, you had to figure out the mountain bike part, that's pretty unique, I think. Although obviously you did road cycling. So that's awesome. And so obviously you did triathlons and did Xterras for a number of years. And then you went pro in 2010?
Right.
Okay. And then, maybe talk about, what was that transition like? Like, how did you get to the point, momentum, whatever you want to call it, where you said, you know what, I'm going pro?
I think I started finishing in the top 10. Like, I don't remember. I think at that time they were doing mass starts at most races, pros and age groupers together.
Okay.
And I was finishing in the top 10 of the overall women. Yeah. Yeah. And so I was like, well, the top 10 earn money. Why, like, if I'm going to come and if I'm finishing the top 10, I should be able to take home money. Like, here I'm finishing 7th, and 2 people that finished behind me are getting money and I'm not. So I should really go pro. And like, heck, even if I'm only getting $200 for being 10th or something, hey, that could pay for my gas to get here or whatever else. So I figured, well, I'll go for it. And plus when you're the best amateur, it feels great and you get swag and you're like, yeah, I'm the best. But cool. It doesn't make you any better.
Right.
Right. When you're mid pack or back of the pack and chasing people, that's what makes you faster. And that's what really drives you to get better, so you can move up the pack and be the best. So it was a, challenge. It was that, like, how fast can I get? That's the only way to find out, is to go pro and actually race the fast girls.
That's awesome. And obviously you've done phenomenally well. And one of the things I was talking about before is, and I'm totally impressed by, is the consistency. I mean, you're looking at now a decade of pro racing and consistently pretty much being the top US female and amongst the top, usually top 5 in the world, depending on which race and how people try to compare. What do you attribute, that amazing consistency to?
I think, consistency of training is obviously key, because you can't maintain form if you're off and on all the time. I think it's really just the love of doing these sports and the love of training, because, even without a race on the schedule, I still love training every day. Like, that's why I'm still doing this. I don't get sick of racing or doing the sport, is because I love the challenge that I have every day of whatever training is on my schedule. Like, I love, say it's crazy to think, but, going to the pool and swimming 10 200s at race pace or whatever the workout is, like, I think about that. I'm like, oh, this is going to hurt so bad. Like, this is not going to be a pleasant training session.
Right.
But I love it.
That's cool.
So I thrive on it. And that's what makes me feel good. It makes me feel, I feel good when I'm successful at that workout, completing the objective of that workout successfully. I'm like, okay, it was a good day.
It was a good day. That's cool.
And if I didn't, then it's the challenge of, regrouping or doing it, whatever I have to do in order to get it right the next time.
Cool.
So
did you find that your training had to shift a bit when you went pro? Was it pretty much consistent with what you already were doing, or?
I think when I went pro, I think that's when I got a coach. I was coaching myself up until then. And I found that even though I have the knowledge to do it, I don't trust myself like I trust somebody else. So I can write up my training plan with all the, well, this is what I should do. Right. But when it comes to the day of doing X workout, I start to think about all the other kinds of workouts I could do and think, well, I don't know if I'm feeling good enough to do this workout today. Maybe I should do this, or, oh, I just read this cool article about this training method. Maybe I should try that.
Mix it up.
Yeah. So I hired a coach to actually keep me focused and keep me accountable to doing the training that should be done, rather than, having all these, well, I could do this, or I don't know, just second guessing myself. Like, if somebody gives me a plan, I do it 100%. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts, which is a good and a bad thing. Sometimes you shouldn't train if you're, certain things, if you're getting sick or whatever, but
of course.
Generally, I needed somebody. Yeah. I needed somebody to say, this is what you need to do, and stick to it.
Right.
Kind of to hold me back.
Accountability. Right. Oh yeah, I think I can do a century today. Why not? I just feel like it. Yeah. And I get that. As I'm sure many of the people on this do. And that, by the way, is a question from Lauren. She also asked, did you feel a lot of pressure to win when you went pro?
I don't think I felt any pressure to win until I won my first race. Because until you win one, you're just one of the, maybe if you're finishing top 3, the media starts talking about, who could win this race. You know, if
Right.
you've been in the top like 3 to 5, they start throwing you into the mix of potential winners. But I think until I actually won a race, I never really expected to win a race. And then once you do, you're like, wow, I can actually do this. It changes from like, I really want to win to, wow, I really can win. Like, this is a reality.
Right.
Um,
That's cool.
so
Which race was that? Which was the one which was the first win?
my first pro Xterra win was Xterra New Zealand,
Very
Rotorua.
cool.
My first major, like,
Right.
pro. Yeah.
Outside of winning that first one, and that must have been an amazing experience. Can you think of another racer that was meaningful to you, and why, just in terms of developing as a pro triathlete, or, you know, in general? Maybe anything that was kind of a crossroads where you're beyond. I mean, obviously that's huge, realizing, okay, I can do this, then what? And that could be a really hard day. I think, you know, as triathletes, we learn a lot from our failures and from those moments where everything goes wrong. You know, and makes you kind of mentally stronger, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So my first win was Rotorua in 2015. You know, early season was like March or April. And then I won again in Richmond. And then towards the end of the season, I went to Mexico to race, and I crashed and fractured my pelvis on the course preview ride. And that was, I mean, it was devastating because it was a month before nationals.
Right.
Emma Gerard and I were like 6 points apart in the America Tour standings. So we were supposed to battle it out in Utah for, you know, not only the national championship, but also the tour series overall win. And now I had a fractured pelvis. Like, you know, this is my first like big year of success, and now I'm out. And it was just mental, you know, it was just devastating mentally. And so I went to, that was 6 weeks before Utah.
Wow.
The crash happened. And so I was just devastated, you know. And then like 2 weeks before Utah, I started thinking, well, and so I'm hobbling around on crutches at this time. You know, a fractured pelvis, there's nothing you can do. You can't cast, or they couldn't screw it together or anything. It just had to heal. And so I'm hobbling around on crutches, and I'm like, man, I'm sitting second in the points. If I go to Utah, like if I can just gut it out and just like complete the race somehow, I can still get second in the overall and, you know, take home $6,000 to help offset the cost of all this traveling I did all year. And if I don't go, then I fall out of the standings completely, and it's a big zero.
Yep.
So I start testing myself out, you know, can I even walk without these crutches? And it was like the week of the race, it was still like, I don't know if I can do this, but I'm going to try. So I went to Utah, and I managed to get through the race. I mean, I had to pedal pretty slow, and every bump hurt, and I had to walk the entire run, but I finished the day. And that's when I realized, like, you know what, there's more to racing than winning. And, you know, it's about being out here in your community, because I got so much support from everybody around me. You know, not everyone knew the situation I was in, or that I had a fractured pelvis. So
right.
I was out there walking the entire 10K course, and everyone who passed me was like, come on, don't give up. You can do it. And come on, run with me for a little while. And I'm like, nope, I'm good. Thanks. You know, cause they didn't know I couldn't run.
No idea. Right.
But they were encouraging me, and I was like, this is why I do the sport. I mean, Xterra specifically, because it's such a family. Like, I've been in it for so long. I'm so close with so many people that do it. Like, I can't imagine not doing it. Like, not coming to that race and being with all my friends at national championship is just like unfathomable.
Yeah.
So, you know, that I'd always known that, but until you're faced with a time where you think maybe you can't actually do it, it really
Right.
hits home like, no, I have to go. I really, like, I can't miss it. And then, you know, all the support of coming back the next year. It was a really long, sort of complicated recovery from that injury. And then came back and did the whole Pan Am tour in 2016. And, you know, I worked my butt off through that recovery process, doing whatever I could so that I could come back and race the next year whenever that. I had no idea when I could start racing again, but, you know, I did everything I could and found some great coaches to help me and with different kinds of training. And I got super strong. And when I started racing again, I won my first race back and was like, whoa, you know, I was shocked at myself. And, you know, I had a really great year and won the Pan Am race for the first time overall. I had never won that race flat out. I'd always been second or fourth or something. And
right. And that's
so that
amazing.
was
Coming off such a significant injury and having faced with that, I can only imagine what your mindset must have been and what that training must have been like. Like, what was different maybe in that period of your training and your focus and, you know, to produce that? And I think that from what you've talked and what we've talked on conversation, it probably wasn't, oh, I'm going to win first time back. Right.
no.
Right. Because I think it's wonderful because you're very humble in that way, which is wonderful. I mean, for an experienced athlete like yourself, but how did your mindset shift? You know, you hear you're healing, and I'm sure in many ways you're starting from ground zero, right? Your muscles probably aren't where they were. You've got to recondition and get refocused. You know, maybe talk about where did you go mentally, or how did you overcome that?
I think I had to focus on what I could do at the time, not what I couldn't do. So while the bones were healing very, very slowly, I could, you know, after the first like 3 months, maybe, I think I started swimming with a pull buoy, because kicking was painful, couldn't run. But I could do strength training, you know, generally speaking, like if my feet were stationary, I could do certain things. So I really I focused on the things I could do and focused on getting stronger any way I possibly could, or healthy and more balanced, and, you know, improving my weaknesses. And, you know, I'd separated my shoulders previous year too. So I was working on my shoulder mobility and still rehabbing my whole body. And just that sense of getting stronger and feeling that I was getting stronger, even if I couldn't run yet or, you know, ride my bike outside yet. It was like I was in the weight room lifting heavy and feeling strong and knowing that, okay, this will help me eventually when I can start doing these other things. And it was really just the thought of the thought of returning to the sport. It was just that motivation of like, hey, this is what I have to do in order to get back. If I don't do this, I'm never gonna be able to race again.
You know, it's interesting. I think two things. First, I imagine that changed kind of how you focus on your base training a little bit. Sounds like you probably were more, if I had to guess, more strength training orientated. And also it speaks to, you know, times like this, what we're dealing with in this kind of limbo season with racing. We all want to do it, you know, and maybe talk to, you know, what's keeping you strong, mentally motivated today as we wait for, I don't know when we're starting to race.
Yeah. It's really the same thing. I think it's focusing on what you can do and not what you can't do. Right. So instead of being bummed about not being able to go to the pool and do a swim workout,
Right.
You know, I'll do some extra strength training at home. I mean, I'm fortunate that I'm a strength coach, so I have a bunch of equipment at home that I can use to strength train. I can work on my mobility. I can work on maybe my running a little bit extra, or my cycling, or, you know, the things that you can always improve somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, taking the time, even just sleeping a little bit later, instead of having to get up at 4:30 or 5 to make it to the pool, to swim, to, you know, and then shower and get to work by 8:30 or 9. Since I don't have to go to the pool, that travel time is cut out. I can get up at 6, do a stretch cord swim workout in my house, some mobility, yoga, stretching, and then walk over to my office and start working at 8:30 or 9, and I'm getting an extra hour or 2 of sleep. So,
Which is
it's
key.
going to be better for your recovery. It's better for your overall health. And so finding the positives in the situation like that is like, I've never been more rested than I am now.
That makes
so, so, I mean, that feels good.
Anything else besides more sleep that you do for recovery? Any specific things that you find that are extremely helpful for you?
Definitely soft tissue work, mobility work. So, like, not just yoga, but, you know, targeting specific areas for mobility, like thoracic region of your back and hips. And, you know, going through specific movements and exercises and using a ball or roller, bands, things like that, to target specific areas that I know are troublesome for me, where I get really tight and restricted. So spending some time on that stuff is really important, because when you do get busy, that's always the first thing that gets cut out of your day. Even if it's on my training plan, which my coach is really good about putting that stuff in my training plan, because it's when it's on my training plan, I do it. If it's not, it's just kind of like, I should do this, but I don't have time.
Right.
So, so that helps. And he's been giving me specific mobility routines, which are great. So working on that stuff, really targeting the hips. You know, endurance athletes, we're always going forward linear, which gets us really tight in the hip flexors and psoas and TFLs, and just keeping those things healthy and trying to prevent them from getting too tight, or once they do get real tight, getting on top of release really helps to just keep the body healthy and before you get too far gone.
Definitely. I'm going to go to a couple of the questions from some of the athletes sent in. And for those of you watching, if you want to comment below, if you have any additional questions that you want me to run by Suzie. Eileen Neville asked, what's your favorite workout?
I don't know if I have a favorite workout in particular. I think any workout that I can do outside on the mountain bike or on the trails in general, maybe trail running, that's my favorite, just in general. Whether it's a hard workout or an easy one, I love being out on the trails in the fresh air, surrounded by the dirt and trees, and it's just kind of my happy place. So whether it's a hard workout and I'm having to hit specific times or power numbers or something like that, is I still enjoy those just as much as an easy ride. So
Yeah, no,
just,
I get it. I mean, here in New Jersey, they closed all the parks. Yes, they announced that this weekend they're opening back up. So I did a little Snoopy dance. So it's definitely my happy place too.
yeah.
I'm going to give you another question. This is from Walter Clayton Davis. He asked, "What's your ratio of road/gravel rides to off-road riding when you're doing your training?"
I think it's changed over the years.
Yeah.
You know, when I first started, I think I was doing primarily mountain biking because I had to learn how to mountain bike and you just have to do it in order
Yep.
to learn.
Volume.
Yep. And then as I got better, as my fitness improved, I started doing more, or as my mountain biking skills improved, I started doing more cycling on the road so I could really focus on the fitness aspect and building up my actual fitness to go fast. And then, you know, it's still that way. I still blend road, mountain bike, trainer. Um, I, I mean, these days now that I work full time, I do since December, probably, I've been doing all my weekday rides on the trainer, and then I'll get outside and ride on the weekend.
Yep.
And it really depends on my training plan. If it's a road ride or a mountain bike ride or gravel ride, it really just depends on the objective of the workout. I haven't had too much really quality weekend training yet. It's been mostly just endurance base riding. So
Makes sense.
I've been able to do that on any terrain, and I've just been mixing it up. So whatever, you know, I've got a couple training buddies in town that, you know, will text and, hey, where do you want to ride this weekend? And so we just kind of just change it up. But weekday, I've been doing all my quality rides on the weekdays have been like Sufferfest videos on the trainer or specific workouts that my coach gives me that I just download to my Element, and Element drives the kicker and, you know, changes the intensity for me, does the whole interval thing for me. So I just ride and I don't have to worry too much about.
Does that allow you to download the course too? Like if you have a particular course you're training for?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. The cool thing about I don't know about Garmin's or other computers, but I know Wahoo's, you can download a course that you've done, whether it be a race course or a training ride or anything. You can download it to your Element and then pair the Element with your kicker, and the kicker in the climb too. It'll the course on the Element will drive the kicker to change resistance, and the climb will elevate and descend as if you're on the actual course. Yeah. So
That's
it's a
cool.
pretty cool
So
feature.
probably a lot of people don't know that besides being one of the top pro triathletes, they also either have to thank you or complain to you about Sufferfest as the training plan manager. Is there a particular training plan or particular workouts that you recommend, especially if you're thinking about a lot of our group would be people that are either getting into mountain biking or they're mountain biking and they're preparing for nationals? Is there any particular ones that you'd say, oh, this is an area you should focus on specifically with Sufferfest?
Well, right now, at this point in time with the pandemic going on, we've developed specific training plans for being stuck indoors primarily and being limited to not being able to swim. Some people can't even get outside to train, right, to ride and run. So they're either stuck on the treadmill and the trainer, or they don't have a treadmill at all. So there's no running. So we've developed training plans for triathletes and cyclists to really focus on one, not overtaxing your body with overtraining, because a lot of people are probably tempted to train more because they can, either they've lost work or furloughed or something, or they're working from home. So you just have a little more time in the day. But that can run down your immune system and you can get sick more easily. So we developed the training plans to be pretty moderate in volume, and intensity can still be high. A lot of our Sufferfest videos are high intensity, but they're short in duration, so they don't overtax you on both aspects.
Okay.
So, and then we call them all-in training plans. So the all-in plans are, because we say go all in now so you can go all out later. It's sort of a play on you're stuck inside, so you're all in order to go all out later. Right. All out as in racing and outside. We're so clever at the Sufferfest, and I didn't come up with that. So
I love the names of the word. I've just started getting on the Sufferfest. I've been doing Zwift and kind of migrating over a bit, but the names are hilarious. And you go, oh, and then you read up the whole detail and you go, oh, this is gonna hurt.
Yeah,
but it must be done.
Yeah, it's true. I've been doing the Sufferfest videos for like 10 years now. I had them when you had to actually buy the video and download it to your computer, which I guess was post like having to buy the DVD.
Right.
So I guess I was in like the second generation, but still, long before I ever worked for them or anything.
Right.
But they're really great high quality workouts. They're designed by Neil Henderson and Matt Kaysen, who are some of the best cycling and triathlon coaches in the world. So they know what they're doing. It's not just, the connotation or the reputation, I think, of Sufferfest is just a workout that's just going to crush you, right? Where it's not that. It's actually a really thought out, well-designed workout and training plans. We just, when David started the company, it did start as, well, he just made these videos for himself and his buddies for fun and, to be really hard workouts, but they've evolved and now they're really just good quality structured workouts. So we write our training plans with the intention of giving you a good quality workout that you need at a certain point in time. So at this point in time, the all-in workouts, they integrate your cycling and running if you're a triathlete, plus strength training. Okay. So we have a series of strength training workouts that you can always add to any training plan or do on your own in the app. But we've integrated in the strength training and the mental training components and yoga into the all-in plans to really just hammer home that this is an ideal opportunity to work on the things that you maybe normally wouldn't at this point in time. And these are the things that you probably ought to be doing that you aren't doing. So we're going to put them into the plan to really make sure you do them so that you don't have an excuse of like, well, my race is in, 6 weeks, so I don't want to start strength training now. Like, your races are a long time off. So now this is a great time to start doing strength training. And we've created at this point 3 brand new strength training sessions to really help the triathletes and mountain bikers or cyclocross riders who want and need more upper body strength. Yeah. So we have 2 sort of swim specific strength training routines and
Okay.
one upper body focused strength training routine that we've woven into the triathlon all-in plans and the cycling all-in plans. And what else?
There's a lot. I mean, what impressed me is there's a lot of depth to Sufferfest and to all of that. And there's also obviously the yoga plans they added, or the yoga features to work on flexibility and all that. Although I will say the person sounds a little like a robot. So just to share that with you. But it's great. And it is amazing how the tech with the smart trainers, and obviously it's not a surprise who bought Sufferfest. I mean, it is a great combination of the two. I think now more than ever, with a lot of training having to be done indoors, it's a godsend. It's great that we have these tools that we can use and stay sharp and keep developing. So appreciate, what you and everyone at Sufferfest is doing to make our lives really hard and joyful at the same time. I just finished that one and I feel great. And when do I kill myself again? So, it's good. It's good. It definitely goes with the sadist mentality that comes from being an off-road triathlete. Let me just jump to one or two others here. What would you say your favorite off-road cross-tri course is and why?
I think that would be Xterra Oak Mountain in Alabama.
Yep.
It's fun. Like, I really do have fun racing on that course. It's hard. I mean, that never changes, but, I love lake swimming, probably because I grew up in the country on a lake. So I just love that calm freshwater lake swim. The mountain bike course is almost completely single track. It's got a great mix of fast sections, but techie sections, single track that's, smooth and easy to go fast, but hard to go fast because there's a lot of trees and roots and rocks and things. So it's challenging in that aspect, but it's also shaded, which is really nice, especially in Alabama where it can be pretty hot and humid. And the run course it's changed over the years. It used to be absolutely brutal. When I was an amateur, it was very different from what it is now. And they took us up these hills, up and down these hills that were barely runnable. Like, you would lose your footing trying to go down them. You'd have to go down like sideways in order to just not slide out on your butt.
I think it's one of the years I did it, because I did it in 15.
So, so the run course has changed now. Now it's a lot faster, pretty good footing, but it's still mostly single track. It's shaded around the lake. It's just a beautiful venue, I think. Southern hospitality is always nice. People there are just so great and welcoming. There's a lot to love about that particular event.
Nice. Oh, well, we're excited that that in the first couple of years, Wherever Yonder was the same weekend. So that was one of my regrets, that I couldn't go down there to race it again, because I was directing our own race here, and so that this year was separated. And it looks like going forward that hopefully will be consistent, because it's great having a range of really, really great races to do. And working up towards it. So, but yeah, that was a great experience. I remember when I was down there. Just beautiful course.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's one of the first races of the season. If you don't go overseas to like New Zealand or South Africa or something, it's really one of the first races in the States. So it's also that camaraderie of seeing your whole Xterra family again. And it's a lot of fun in that regard, for that reason too.
Shifting gears real quick, because got about 15 minutes left. talk to us about your current mountain bike setup and any special tweaks that you particularly like doing to your bike.
Well, right now I am working on building up a full suspension bike. So last year I raced for a team that just didn't really work out. So I had to shift gears and figure out what I was going to do for this year,
Right.
and decided that it's more important to me to use the equipment that I like and trust and want to use, rather than having a sponsored equipment that I don't really like or want to use. So, so I've decided to, so last fall, right before Worlds, I bought an Orbea Alma hardtail.
Beautiful.
Like specifically for Maui, because I heard the course had changed and it was pretty hardtail friendly, and so I thought I'm going as light as possible, hardtail. Bought a SRAM Axis drivetrain, threw that on, and super light wheels, and so right now that's the bike I've been riding. My local shop did offer me a bike to race for the season, which I really considered, but it's I got it. Like I feel kind of petty saying like, well, it wasn't a top of the line bike. It was a little bit too heavy to be able to be truly competitive and win races on. But, when you get into the top 3, 5, whatever, and you're trying to win races, you really have to do everything you can to have the best equipment, the lightest stuff, like, because you can train your butt off. But if your bike is 3 pounds heavier than the girls who are also training their butts off, and you're already this close to each other, like having a 3-pound bike is a death sentence.
Yeah,
so
I was looking at, I don't know if it was nationals or worlds, but within like yourself and 2 of the other pros, I mean, there's like a 40-second spread amongst the 3 of you on a 3-hour race.
Yeah.
So I totally get it. Talk to me, and I'll be going to Worlds for the first time myself, taking off my race director hat and going back to my racing hat. Tell me about that course and that experience, and was the hardtail the right move? Because that's kind of the way that I've kind of decided to go for that course.
So first of all, the course changes they made, I think, are fabulous. It's a much more mountain biker friendly course than the old course, because it was a lot more fire road. Okay. So wonderful. So folks who are really strong road riders or strong in terms of fitness but didn't have a lot of mountain bike skill would do really well on the old course. Whereas on this new course, it's a lot more, I think it favors the mountain biker much more, because there's more single track. The climbing is almost the same amount. It's just in 2 laps instead of 1 big loop, and it's a little bit more technical. Both, I mean, not so much on the climbing, there's not a lot of technical climbing, but just in general speaking, it's more single track, so you have to be able to handle your bike and routes and twisty turny quick turns, and if it's wet it gets super slick, so you've got to be able to deal with that. There's some really steep climbing, so the hardtail is nice for the light aspect of the climbing. And I think the hardtail works because it's not technical in the really rocky rooty sense. It's more of the lot of quick, short, sharp turns, quick punchy up and down type of stuff. So I think the hardtail works pretty well. Of course, there are always a couple spots where you wish you had a full suspension, but I think in the overall picture, the hardtail is a good choice. Okay.
What tires are you running? What did you run last year?
Last year, I know I ran Maxxis. I think I ran the TT Race, it's called, which it wasn't bad, but it rained a little bit that morning, which was completely unexpected. And yeah, and so the dirt was wet, which that tire is like a pretty fast rolling dry terrain tire. Has a lot of knobs, but they're really close. So it's not a good mud tire. It's not good in the wet because it just picks up the dirt and holds on to it. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't the best tire in that sense, but you can't control those things. Like if there's no rain in the forecast, you're not going to put a mud tire on your bike, right?
Right. You're going to go with best knowledge and go with it.
Exactly. So it wasn't bad, but it was a little slippy in the corners, and I did slip out several times. Just taking corner too fast or hitting a root at, an angle that you shouldn't. But yeah, I've been riding Maxxis tires for a long time, which I really like. They've got a great line to choose from. I always go with the EXO sidewall protection because as much as it's tempting to be a weight weenie and go with the lightest tire, you're going to lose a heck of a lot more time if you flat than if you just carry a few extra grams. So
I learned that one the hard way. I was experimenting and had gotten a new hardtail. It came with the standard stock Maxxis Icons, and I kept shredding the rear. And I gave up. I pulled everything off, put on with the EXO, and I'm like, okay, it's like you said, it's worth a little more weight to know that. And for those racers that are going to be coming to New Jersey for USA Triathlon Off-Road Nationals, you're going to want that for that course. It's a very rocky course. You are going to hit stuff. And the weight savings versus the time lost for having to change a tire or throw a tube in, not worth it. So, but that's good advice. And I think that's, it is always that balancing act of, well, I can save this many grams, but you're right. It's having the peace of mind that the tire's going to stay with you and you can finish the ride is always a good thing. I'm going to switch one last gear for you. So I always like throwing something different in here. So what's your favorite band? If you had to pick one or two.
I guess it depends on the situation. If I'm working out, it's got to be like AC/DC or Metallica or something that's I just like the classic rock sort of stuff. Let's see. If I'm just kind of chilling, probably something like Jack Johnson or something along those lines. Okay. I'm not like a music connoisseur of any kind. I'm not like really hardcore about any one band or genre or anything. I like a variety. I like country. I like, I'll give anything a listen and for a little while, and then I'll just get sick of it and change it.
Yeah. So besides putting on some good tunes to get you going, anything else that you do in your warm up, anything else that either that you do or that you'd recommend for athletes when they're entering into a race?
I think anything that can keep you relaxed at the same time of getting you ready to race is important. I've had some of my absolute best performances when I've been the most relaxed mentally, when on race more, and it always changes. Like, I never know when or how it shifts from one race to the next. Like one race, I'll show up in the morning and just be like this complete nerve ball and, feel like I just can't relax for the life of me. And I'm just I go through the same routine every time, but sometimes I'm all like nerved up and other times I'm like, hey, how you doing? Morning. Like just relaxed and not so tense. And I don't know, I can do the exact same thing all week before. And on race morning, sometimes I feel one way and sometimes I feel another way. And I always have my best performances when I'm on the more relaxed side. You can still be focused and relaxed. It's not that you have to be just not a care in the world. I still go through my routine of, the normal race morning stuff. But when I get to the venue, a lot of times it changes whether I go nervy or relaxed. And last year in Alabama, I had some friends there that I hadn't seen from Virginia. Jim and Maddie Fisher were there, and Maddie was, what is she? She was 13, I think, and she was doing the X-Ticer race. And she's a super, super great athlete. And she has a tradition of always double French braiding her hair before a race. But her mom wasn't there, who normally does it. And Jim didn't know how to do it. So we were staying in the same hotel, and we got in the elevator at the same time that morning to go load the cars. And he's like, hey, I know, like, you don't have to do it. You can say no, but, Maddie always braids her hair for a race, and her mom's not here, and I don't know how to do it. Like, do you think you could braid her hair? I was like, yeah, sure. And so I completely changed my pre-race routine that morning, and not even like, I didn't even think twice about it. I was like, yeah, whatever, no big deal. I was sort of thinking about trying a different warm-up routine instead of doing, a 10-minute run and then a 15-minute bike and then finishing transition and then going to the swim. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do my dynamic stretch and my swim warm-up. And, make sure, like, I'll ride my bike around for a few minutes, from the car to transition or whatever, make sure it's all good. But I'm not going to go out on the bike and ride for 15 minutes and do 3x1 minute openers and yada, yada, yada. I'm just going to, relax a little more, try a longer swim warm up and see what happens. So, I'm milling around spending a little more time in transition. And so Maddie comes over and I'm braiding her hair and just, like it just changed my whole attitude of not having to do X, Y, and Z in order to be ready. Like, I'm just going to relax, take a deep breath. I think actually, like, braiding her hair was relaxing for me.
Yeah, I could see that.
I was able to sort of just breathe and stay calm and not feel so uptight. So I did that, and then I went and, got in the water and did my swim warm up and all that, and had a fantastic race. And I felt great throughout the race, and I won, and was like, this whole like pre-race have to do XYZ routine is not really, doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah. And you know what, I would bet, all the training that you do, and I think, what's the common saying, when you arrive on race day, you've already kind of completed it, right? You're already kind of there. All that pre-work is where it all happens. And, I can look at my own races and the racers that I know, their best races are just that, when they're relaxed and just enjoying how lucky we are to participate in these amazing sports, to have the joys of the forest, to get off road, and have that experience. So that's awesome. I appreciate sharing that. So I appreciate your time today. I appreciate you joining us here on Adventure Live. Before we go, folks, I'll tell you, next week we're going to go all the way to Alaska. Will Ross is going to be joining us. He's another pro triathlete and one hell of a mountain biker and a fat biker. And we'll look forward to seeing you all here on Adventure Live next week. Dave out.